This week brings the release of Disney Plus, the newest streaming platform vying for your money. A lot of people are excited to see the new shows set in the Marvel and Star Wars universe, but I'm probably most eager to go back in time and revisit the archive of Disney afternoon classics like DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, and TaleSpin. To help celebrate the launch of Disney Plus, I wanted to take a look at two lesser-known Disney afternoon games on 16-bit systems. Turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the story and ending for both Bonkers and Goof Troop. This is Game Over, the early years. After a string of successful spin-offs that included everything from Darkwing Duck to TaleSpin, Disney needed something new for 1992. That something new was Goof Troop, featuring the lovable Goofy and his mischievous son, Max. This was also the perfect opportunity to bring back the nefarious Pete, who first showed up in Steamboat Willie back in 1925, making him Disney's oldest animated villain. But when it comes to the Goof Troop game, Pete is not an evildoer, but rather a victim. You see, the whole thing starts when Goofy and his pals are fishing in Spoonerville. But things get flipped upside down when Pete and his son PJ run into a giant boat and get kidnapped by a bunch of pirates. Unfortunately, Goofy's little arms can't row fast enough to catch up, and he and Max vow to get to the pirate island and rescue his next-door neighbor. Goofy and Max get to the island and have a fairly easy time defeating the pirate army. As it turns out, these swashbucklers didn't intend to kidnap Pete and PJ, but instead mistook him for their pirate leader. That's a guy named Keelhaul Pete, and the pirates have been in a real panic ever since he was gobbled up by a whale. But the regular Pete doesn't care because he's living the high life pretending to be the pirate leader. Little does he know that Goofy is on the hunt to rescue his friends and clear everything out. Now, it's while searching through the underground caverns that our heroes discover the pirate ship. They swoop in to save Pete, but wait, that's not Pete! They finally put everything together and discover that Keelhaul Pete is back and not especially happy with the current situation. They decide to clear everything up by going on that pirate ship, but they're met with a lot more resistance than they expected. It all ends with the real Pirate King swooping down in an effort to stop Goofy and Max. They fight it out, and this is what happens next. By 1993, we were starting to see a lot of the early Disney afternoon favorites make way for new shows. DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, and TaleSpin had all ended, and Disney had managed to air all 78 episodes of Goof Troop in 1992. What the Disney afternoon needed was a new hit, so they turned to Bonkers D. Bobcat, a former cartoon star who now works in the Toon Division at the Hollywood Police Department. It's a buddy cop show where Bonkers works with an ill-tempered human to solve crimes throughout the city. Now, unlike Goof Troop, there were several games based on Bonkers' 61-episode run. We got a Super NES adaptation from Capcom, as well as Genesis, Master System, and Game Gear versions by Sega. Let's go ahead and start with the Sega side of things, which is based on the idea that Bonkers really wants to become the Officer of the Month. He figures that with his partner Lucky on vacation, all he needs to do is arrest the top 4 most wanted criminals and he'd be a lock for the top prize. The gimmick in this version of Bonkers is that each villain comes with its own unique style of gameplay. For example, we'll race around the city in a cop car looking for Ma Tow Truck. When we clear up traffic, we'll navigate a warehouse maze full of crates in order to nab Mr. Big. Meanwhile, defeating the rat will involve building a brick wall. And the only way to bring Harry the Handbag to justice is to throw donuts at his raccoon army while they loot the museum. We successfully capture the crooks and save the day, and this is what happens next. Like I said, Sega also made a Game Gear game, which was later ported to the Master System by Tectoy. The story is quite a bit different and involves Madame Husaid's attempt to coat famous tunes with wax and make statues for her display. This creates a much more straightforward 2D platformer, which ultimately ends with a short paragraph of congratulation text and this picture of a newspaper. Yeah, there's nothing to see here, so let's just move on. Now, when it comes to Capcom's Super NES game, it all starts out with a mysterious thief stealing 3 of Hollywood's most valued treasures. They nabbed the sorcerer's hat from Fantasia, the mermaid's voice from The Little Mermaid, and the magic lamp from Aladdin. Okay, so that's more of animated Hollywood's most valued treasures, but that's not going to stop Bonkers from getting them back. However, there's a catch. Nobody actually wants to play as the boring old human. So we first need to get Lucky out of the picture. Capcom does this with a car accident, which sends him to the hospital for the rest of the game. Alright, long story short, this sends Bonkers all across Hollywood, where he'll fight enemies on movie sets and run into all kinds of famous Disney cameos. Bonkers eventually realizes that the same person is responsible for all of the burglaries, so he follows the clues and hunts him down in Toon World. This is where he finds the Collector, who isn't going to give over the goods without a fight. Bonkers wins, and this is what happens next. nothing else, I really like that this game ends with a conversation and not more violence. That's more in the tradition of the Disney afternoon cartoons, where the characters would actually talk to each other and not just bounce on their heads. And while it's not as chatty, I also like the way the Genesis game ends. That little animated skit is a lot of fun, and it's refreshing to see stakes this low. Sure, he captures a bunch of criminals, but it's not because the world is being threatened or somebody's been kidnapped. Bonkers just wants to be recognized as the officer of the month, and when it comes down to it, I think that's something we can all relate to, no matter the profession. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, the early years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every Monday. Now here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite Disney afternoon game? There are a bunch to choose from, including multiple versions of DuckTales and Rescue Rangers and TaleSpin and Darkwing Duck and more. Let me see your picks in the comments below. Alright, so here's the deal. I ended up getting really sick around Halloween. I came down with the worst flu I've had in years. In fact, it was so bad that I still haven't been able to fully shake it. If you listen carefully, you can still hear it a bit in my voice. Thankfully, I'm doing a lot better than I was a few days ago. I'm still not back to 100%. If that impacts my usual schedule, then I'm sorry. Trying my hardest, and I have a whole bunch of reviews to get up as soon as possible. If you don't mind a few sick days, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here.